For coming. It's a short crowd, which we like, it plus a short agenda. At this time, I'd like to have Mr. Royce say a little prayer and followed by the pledge, if you don't mind.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the students of Lawrence County Schools. We thank our administrators for the fine job that they're doing. We wish that you would bless this meeting and keep us safe, keep everybody safe from here on. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Royce. I believe the microphones, if you would snap your button to the zeros. Is that correct? Is it on? Is it zeros or the slash?
It's all the way up.
Oh, all the way up. I'm sorry, the other way.
You want them on?
No, keep them on if you don't mind. Unless you're saying something private, you take it off. Please call roll.
Mr. Caruso?
Here.
Mr. Daniel?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Dryden?
Here.
Mr. Hartsfield? Ms. Jacobs? Mr. Mabry? Mr. Nidert?
Here.
Mr. Rochelle?
Here.
You have 6 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first action of tonight is a recognition for retired education, and that would be for Mr. Daniel.
Sir. Mr. Atkins and fellow board members, it's my honor and my privilege tonight to recognize a very special man who has dedicated now over 40 years of service to our school system and to the youth of Lawrence County. Over this amount of time, this man has positively impacted countless lives of the students that he has taught and mentored, myself being one of those students. And even after putting in 38 years as an employee of Lawrence County School System, he continues to serve this school system in this county on this very Board of Education. So it is my privilege and honor to recognize Mr. Royce Nidert tonight. Mr. Nidert, if you would, come on down. Mr. Nidert received his bachelor's degree of science education in 1972 from the University of Tennessee. He then went on to receive certification in special education from the University of Alabama, certification in electronics engineering technology from Columbia State Community College, a master's in supervision and administration from Tennessee State University, certificate in industrial studies from MTSU. Things you may not know, Mr. Nidert served this great nation in the United States Army Reserve as a parachute rigger in 1968 to 74. How many jumps did you make? 30 some odd jumps. Well, thank you for your service, Mr. Nidert. He began his career in Lawrence County School System in 1972 as a vocational teacher at Loretto High School. In 1973, he left Lawrence County School Systems and went to Lauderdale County High School as a special education teacher. He was there from 1974 to 77, and then he spent a year as a general contractor in the community, or in the city of Loretto. And then from 1978 or 77 to 78. And then 78, Mr. Nidert came back to the Lawrence County School System as principal and teacher at Liberty Grove Elementary School. He left Liberty Grove and then went back to Loretto High School again, where he taught physics, earth science, physical science, drafting, computer drafting, supercomputing from 1979 to 2005. In 2005, he took an assignment at the central office as a CTE director, as a school safety director, and as technology coordinator. And he served in this position for 6 years until he retired in 2011. Throughout his career, Mr. Nidert received numerous awards and recognitions, selected as to NASA Summer Teacher Enrichment Program from 1992 to 94, selected as the Department of Energy Adventures in Supercomputing instructor in 1994, State of Tennessee 21st Century Classroom, again in 94. He was selected as Loretta High School and Lawrence County School System's Teacher of the Year in 1996. I believe I understand and can attest to why he won that award. In 1996, Mr. Nodder's first period class was physics, and me and my hoodlum friends were his first period class that year. So if he survived and taught us something, he deserved Teacher of the Year. But also he had a Career Ladder 3 certification in 97, selected as Coordinator and Instructor for Mobile Manufacturing Learning Center in 1997, co-recipient of the EPA grant in 97, selected as co-recipient of Computer Grant from Lawrence County Education Foundation in 98, awarded the Governor's School for Manufacturing Distance Learning in 99, selected as Fred National Rural Teacher of the Year in Telecommunications in 99, selected as Murray, Ohio Chair of Excellence High School Award recipient in 2003, awarded Project Lead the Way Pre-Engineering Program Grant in 2006. Mr. Nodder has been married for over 50 years to his wife Carol, who is also a retired Lawrence County School System teacher with over 36 years of service herself. They have 2 daughters, Karen and Laura, and 7 grandchildren. And even after all of his years of service as an employee, with all of his accolades, as I've already stated, Mr. Nodder continues to serve this system on this very board as the board member for District 1. Mr. Nodder has certainly lived a life of servitude to his community and to this school system. As I've already stated, he has been a difference maker in the lives of so many young men and women who've walked the halls of Loretta High School, and not only to those students, but also to his co-workers. And I am one of those who have been positively impacted by Mr. Nodder and the influence that he had on our lives. So, Mr. Nodder, on behalf of everyone that you've taught and mentored, let me say thank you for who you are, for all that you've done. We appreciate you. You are truly a difference maker.
The mic is yours.
All I want to say is what makes this so special is it's coming from one of my former students. They were a bunch of knuckleheads, but I think together we made a lot of progress. Thank you, John, and I really appreciate that. One other person I really want to thank is my wife Carol. She's in the back, and I want to tell you this: she deserves this award as much as I do, or more, probably more, because she kept me straight through all those years. And she was right by my side the whole time. And she spent many hours in elementary classrooms in different capacities. She did a lot, So I couldn't do that. So thanks again.
We want you in the picture. Don't just stand right there in front of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Nodder and John. Going on to item number 1, consent items. Move to approve A through E.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do I have a vote count? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. A through E. Moving on to number 2, report items. A is personnel report. Michael, you have anything to add?
No, sir. It's in the packet. The information is available there.
Does anybody have any questions regarding personal items report? Very well. Moving on to B, director's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few things. Our COVID numbers continue to decline in all of the data points that we monitor each day, we're below 1% among student infections, student quarantines, faculty, students waiting for test results. Our numbers today, 15 students positive out of 6,800, 19 in quarantine, and 7 waiting results. Amongst the faculty and staff, we have 2 positives and 0 quarantine. So our folks have done an excellent job of managing any kind of outbreaks. We had our moments. We've worked through it, and we feel good about where we are now with COVID. At the next board meeting in December, it is our plan to have an open house 3 until 5. Mrs. Watson will coordinate that, get the invites out, share that information with the board before the board meeting. Just a reminder, the board meeting will be December the 2nd. Next board meeting, December the 2nd. We will do that 3 to 5 then and have the board meeting at 5. We were scheduled to give a presentation tonight on academics. We're going to postpone that and move it to December 2nd. Mrs. Ridgway will present what I think is some positive data on where our students are, where they are now and where they were pre-COVID. Our teachers have done an outstanding job in closing those learning opportunities, the missed time. We continue to be impressed with the great work the teachers are doing. I was in contact today with Mr. Cromer. Bids came back for the Loretta High School gymnasium. He's asked that we consider having a work session sometime in November. I will work out the details with him and share with the board, and then we will communicate that out to the community. But that would be sometime the 3rd week of November, possibly. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Does anybody have any questions for Michael at this time? Moving on to C, I believe that's been postponed for Ms. Ridgway to speak at next meeting. D, LCEA, don't see a representative here for that. If she should happen to come in with us in the next 10 minutes, we'll let her speak. Tennessee Legislative Network, I believe there's no update on that at this time. Miss Brenda is out, and Paul will be late, but if he should happen to come in again, we'll backtrack to him and see if he has anything. Moving on to F, the TSBA convention will be November 18th to the 21st. I believe registration is ongoing now. Is that correct, or is it over, Miss Methan?
No, we can still.
Okay, if you're still interested in attending that, Miss Methan will be glad to get y'all going and adjourn for that. Is there any questions regarding report items at this time? Very good. Moving on to items for consideration, discussion, and action. Number 3, we have personnel items for consideration under A. Mr. Atkins.
Mr. Chairman, that is a request from Special Ed, and Mrs. Moore is here tonight to answer any questions you may have. But this is a need to address a transfer situation with a student, and Mrs. Moore has an application in to receive some additional assistance and funding, but that is not available at this time, and would be asking the board to approve from the general fund to cover that position.
Very well. Ms. Moore, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that it's a need for that particular transfer student going to a UDL placement.
Does anybody have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve?
Move we approve.
I've got a motion to approve.
Second.
And we have a second. Please call roll.
Mr. Crusoe?
Aye.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dryden?
Yes.
Mr. Noddert?
Aye.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion passed. Thank you. Moving on to number 4, other items for consideration. Under A, early graduation requests.
Mr. Chairman, each year we submit to the board for consideration. This year we have 12 students from the 3 high schools seeking early graduation. We submit that to the board for approval.
Are there any questions? I have a motion on the floor to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Please call roll.
Mr. Crusoe?
Aye.
Mr. Daniels,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dryden,
Yes.
Mr. Noddert,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
Motion approved. Thank you. Moving on to B, winter sports schedules.
And once again, Mr. Chairman, these are submitted each year for the board's approval. Mrs. Cope is available to answer or address any questions you may have, but it is a list of athletic schedules and events. And of course, I would advise the board there may be games that get moved from one night to another night, rescheduled games and so forth, but we would ask the board's leniency and approval.
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion on the floor to approve.
Second.
I've got a second. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Cope or Mr. Atkins? Please call roll.
Mr. Crusoe,
Aye.
Mr. Daniels,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Dryden,
Yes.
Mr. Noddert,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
6 yes.
Motion approves. Carrying on to item number C, approval of procurement and grant technical assistance for elevation services.
Mr. Chairman, this is a partnership that we have with the evaluation group that will assist us and other school systems in the state. We are doing the application for them. If we were in a situation with grants and needing assistance, they would be there to assist us. There's not a fee attached to this. It is just us entering into an agreement with them and partnership with them as needed.
So this partnership, we only pay them if we utilize them.
Yes, sir.
But what we're approving tonight is just the approval to. So will we have to approve every time?
I think if we have grants that we bring before the board, yes, but this is for them to assist us in that procurement of grants, working with us in grants, helping us develop the language in the grants and so forth. But there would be a fee for the grant that we apply for. If it's approved, we pay for the grant service. If it's denied, they will then do another grant for us at zero cost.
Are there any questions, further questions for Mr. Atkins?
I'm assuming this is something that you're recommending.
Yes, sir. It has come through financial and through academic as well that we pursued.
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion on the floor,
Second.
and we have a second. Are there any questions or further questions at this time? Please call roll.
Mr. Crusoe,
Aye.
Mr. Daniels,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dryden,
Yes.
Mr. Noddert,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
6 yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to C, report on state compliance.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tucker will be presenting that. It's an annual report, and he can answer questions, share information as needed.
Okay. The districts, all LEAs are required to comply with all federal, state, and state Board of Education rules and laws. And the Commissioner of Education requires us each year to complete a compliance report. And if there's anything that we're not in compliance with, we have to submit a plan of action. And so basically it's a form that has to be signed by the Director of Schools, the Board Chairman, and the Board has to vote and say that they approve of this report. And the report just simply says that, to our knowledge, we are in compliance with all federal, state laws, and state Board of Education rules. And to our knowledge, we are. We were audited last year, selected last year, and there were a few findings, but we readily and quickly remedied those and corrected them. We don't know of anything that we're not in compliance with at this time.
I'd like to move that we approve the state compliance report.
We got a motion on the floor to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Are there any questions for Mr. Tucker?
I do have a question. You mentioned we were audited last year. How often does that audit roll around?
It's random. They just randomly select a certain percentage of districts. I've only been in this position for 3 years, and out of 3 years, it's the first time that I know that we have. It's just random selection. They select a certain percentage of districts within the state each year to randomly pick to check.
Is there any services out there, or is there any need to do a periodic audit on our own terms to make sure that we are and we don't get caught?
Within house, before we brought this to you today, that part of the report is that we check to make sure that we are in compliance with all things that are required. So we do it ourselves. Now, I'm not saying anything could slip through that we've overlooked, but to our knowledge, we're in compliance with everything. And it's a ton of rules. The State Board of Education has a ton of rules for anything from licensure to class size requirements, everything, and we're in compliance as far as we know with everything.
Any further questions? I would entertain the board to, I've got the form right here. Does any of the board need to look at them before I sign and Mr. Atkins signs? Very well. I had a motion on the floor to approve in a second. Take a roll call, please.
Mr. Crusoe?
Aye.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dryden?
Yes.
Mr. Noddert?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Motion carries. Before we adjourn, just want to remind you again, there will be no November meeting due to scheduling conflicts, but we will have one on the first week of December, which is this second. And also the open house for the new facility will be 3 to 5, and it will be broadcast and sent out and all that good stuff. Before we adjourn, does anybody have any questions, comments? Excuse me. Yes, and we also want to say congratulations to our sports venues for volleyball. Lawrence County came up a little bit short last night, but they still had an outstanding year. And I believe Loretta and Summertown are still in it, and they will probably, most likely, meet each other again in the finals. It's been a while since any time that Lawrence County has came out for a volleyball game, but it's pretty impressive. If any of y'all have not seen one, I'd strongly recommend to see it. They're pretty excited, especially when they get up to this level. So we wish them best of luck, and hopefully they'll bring home another trophy. Right? Very well. Does anybody have any other questions?
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn in this second. Meeting adjourned.